What's up, you guys? It's Rissamore, and in this video, we're going to be doing our first demonstration. And because I'm still trying to work out the kinks of how I want to record and edit these kinds of videos, I figured starting with something simple would probably be, I guess, the best course of action for this video. Before we get started, I want to start off with a really quick disclaimer. Anything and everything that I show in this video is for educational purposes only. Please don't try any of the things that I'm going to show you in this video on any devices, platforms, or anything like that you don't have explicit permission to do so. Doing things like this can genuinely get you in a lot of trouble, and I'm not responsible for what you do with this information, but just for your sake, don't do anything dumb. In this video, we're going to take a look at one of the more simple and straightforward ways of bypassing authentication, which is simply just brute forcing. And we'll kind of get into a little bit more about that here in a moment, but let's talk about something that we all, I'm sure, struggle with, I guess, in our own kind of day-to-day lives, which is passwords. I don't know how many times it is that you've personally gone through, tried to set up a password, and they have all of these requirements, and I'm sure that a lot of people, maybe not yourself, but people that you know, have wondered, why are there so many requirements? You know, they want you to put in a capital letter, a lowercase letter, a number, and then some kind of a special character, right? I mean, that's to be expected. So why so many requirements behind it? In addition to that, a lot of different places are actually requiring now that you update your password on a pretty regular basis. So like, for instance, if you make one password 3 months, 6 months down the road, all of a sudden the company says, hey, you need to change your password. And a lot of times, yes, that's really good in terms of, if there was any kind of a data breach, if that password was released, it's no longer in there. But the issue is that a lot of times that leads to more and more insecure passwords. Because I mean, let's think about it, right? Let's say that you choose a really basic password. Let's say that you literally choose password and one and an exclamation point. Well, in 6 months down the road, when your password expires, what do you think that the most logical thing is that somebody else is going to pick? The @ symbol, right? And then 6 months down the road, the hashtag, and then the $sign, and then the percent, and so on and so forth until the backlog of passwords that it remembers that you had disappears. And all of a sudden, guess what? You're right back to the exclamation point. Yeah, that's a really bad way to do things. And I'm actually going to demonstrate a lot of why that is. So let's start off really basic. What is brute forcing? It is kind of what you expect it to be. It's right in the name, right? So we know that passwords tend to have a couple of different requirements. You need to have 8 characters minimum, one capital letter, one lowercase, one number, and one special character. If I could type, that would be amazing. But those are, the standards that we're used to. And these add-ons have been, created over time, and it's to actually increase the security of your passwords. In fact, let's kind of take a look as to why that would be. So really quick, with these requirements in mind, let's kind of take a look at what a brute forcing program might do, right? So if you're making a brute forcing program, chances are you're catering it to the specific application or service that you're trying to get into, and you know the requirements behind passwords. So let's say, for instance, that you only had to have a capital letter and a lowercase letter, and you had to have at least 8 characters. So it knows that, right? Well, what you'd kind of program your brute force program to do is you program it to go through and do like A. That's 8 characters. Okay, well, that didn't work out. Let's try out A B. That didn't work out. C. And you'll continue that ad nauseum until you reach all Z's, actually more specifically, capital Z's, because you'll work your way through the capital letters as well as the lowercase letters. So let's kind of take a look at how that would actually look in terms of like a time scale, shall we? So using the example that we were just talking about, if we just had just letters, uppercase and lowercase, there's 26 letters in the alphabet. Multiply that by 2 for upper and lowercase, which gives us a total of 52 possible characters to use. At a minimum of 8 characters for a password, it's going to give us 52 to the power of 8, which is about 53.5 trillion possibilities. Now, this is kind of just a general assumption. Let's assume that your computer can push through 120,000 guesses in a minute, which is quite high for most computers, but there are computers that can go faster than that. But 120K, just a decent kind of middle ground, shall we? With a single computer doing that, it's going to take about 848 years to break that password, assuming that the password is all capital Z's and you're starting from the beginning and you're going in order. The next step is, of course, going to be letters and numbers. So capital letters, lowercase letters, and a number or multiple numbers gives us now 62, uppercase, lowercase, and numbers 0 through 9. Once again, 8 characters gives us 62 to the power of 8. That's 218.34 trillion possibilities for passwords. Once again, if we're guessing 120 of them per minute, it's going to take 3,462 years. You can check my math if you want to. It's genuinely that long. And finally, we have kind of the standard for passwords nowadays, which is going to be letters, capital and lowercase, numbers, and the special characters like exclamation points and things like that, which brings us to usually about 94 characters. So we run that math again. For 8 characters at a minimum, you're looking at 94 to the power of 8, which is 6.1 quadrillion possibilities. And once again, at about 120,000 guesses per minute, we're looking at 96,622 years, plus a little bit. So a lot of people will take a look at this and be like, well, that just means that nobody's ever really going to guess my password. Like, that's not going to happen. And then we kind of get into the mindset of a lot of the, we'll say, older generations that I've worked with in the past, which is, I don't know why my passwords have to be so complicated. Back in the old days, I could just make my password pussy fart and sometimes add the number 1. And if I wanted to get really tricky, I'd put the exclamation point on the password. No hacker would ever guess that I would do that. But I mean, let's be honest. That's exactly the first thing that hackers are going to try, because that's exactly the first thing that people think of, right? So anyways, yes, if a brute force program is trying to go through and do it in this manner, that's probably not your most effective way of doing this. But there are ways to cut down that time even with this manner. So for instance, if you have multiple computers, you can split that list up. That list it's known. You can pre-create that list. So it's a known list, and you're able to split that list up among however many computers you want. And you can just let it run and just keep going and going and going. But let's be honest, having that many computers to get, a password in a reasonable amount of time, that's really expensive and probably not something that most people would want to do. So instead, what hackers will have is they can have something called, I've heard them referred to as a couple of different things, but basically they're lists of passwords. And let me kind of give you an example of that. Let's do sec lists. And what's in sec lists? Let's do passwords. What's in passwords? Let's do, give me one moment here, folks. Let's try out corporate passwords. Oh, okay. Well, see what I mean? We have all these passwords, which, as you can tell, have common words, probably some common numbers. But I bet you we can find a better list than that. Let's go under common credentials here for a moment. Oh, hang on. And see what's inside of here. Let's do, 100,000 most used passwords. Well, hey, guess what? We have a lot more passwords. And you can see that they're kind of all over the place. But these are the 100,000 most commonly used passwords. And there's, as the title says, about 100,000 of them. So a hacker can go through and put this list in, and they're able to get passwords that are commonly used. And chances of that password that a person's using for the general user being inside of this list is relatively high. And if it's not in this one, then there's plenty of other lists. So let's go ahead, let's clear this out, and let's put our money where our mouth is. I'm going to be upfront with you guys. I kind of cheated a little bit in this case because I do already know the username and the password for, for this box. Luckily, this right here, if you haven't seen, this website is called Damn Vulnerable Web App. And it is a website or a web application that you can host locally. I am using TryHackMe. Thank you, TryHackMe, for hosting this online for me, so I didn't have to go through and kind of host it myself. But yeah, so we're able to go through, we'll use this damn vulnerable web app, and you can kind of see here in the reading that it is literally a website that is designed specifically to help people practice things. So if you want to practice any of your hacking techniques, this is one option for you. So we're going to be working on the brute force tab, but before we do that, we're going to change the difficulty. Because I'm just trying to demonstrate this right now, let's pop into low, hit on submit. This is the security level. And I want to give kind of the heads up that what you're going to see, while it is technically feasible to find this on the internet, chances are most places are going to have some kind of blocks in place so that you can't do this. Some of the most common things that you run into are things like multi-factor authentication, or honestly, rate limiting is really common as well. I don't know if you guys have ever had those times when you're trying to sign in, you try it like 5 times and then it locks your account out. There's a bunch of different techniques that web developers can use to help block against brute forcing. It's a very well known was an exploit that people tried to use, and there's a lot of ways that it gets blocked. So just keep that in mind. So if we haven't already, we're going to go ahead and hit on submit and make sure that the low security rules take effect. We're going to hop on over here to brute force. And just so that you're aware, the username and the password for this website is simple. The username is admin by default, and the password is password. It's quick and simple. The only reason why I know this is because I was taking a look at trying to host this myself, and I got lazy, but in the documentation, that was the default credentials. So just understand these are the credentials. So we're going to use a tool here called Kaido, which essentially is a proxy that's able to intercept any traffic that your computer sends, and you can make modifications to it. So for instance, let's say we went through here, I typed in test and test. And yes, I've already run some practices on this just to make sure that I wasn't going to look like a fool as I went through and did it. It's my first demonstration. Bear with me, folks. We're going to go ahead and turn off forwarding, and we're going to start queuing up some requests. So we haven't hit on login yet, but when I hit on login, you'll see that it doesn't work because I forgot to do Kaido. Let's do that. And then refresh the page. And we'll forward it. All right, once again, test. Really quick before we go forward, this is actually a really good thing to take a look at. So some websites, you can get a lot of information about how they handle usernames and passwords right from the page. In this case, it doesn't tell you whether the username was incorrect or the password is incorrect. And you can go through and test this yourself, but if you put in admin, which is a valid username, it won't come up and say that the username is valid, but the password is. That's some things that you can do kind of on your end to test to see what things are correct. It can help out a lot with you finding correct credentials. All right, so now that we have Kaido actually turned on and operating, let's go ahead and try this. Let's do testing and see if this works. There's our request, and you can see here that this is the request. This is what my computer is trying to send to that web server. And we can see right here, we can see the username, testing, and the password, testing. And the function that I'm trying to do is log in. You can see a lot of other things. We'll cover HTTP requests in a different video, but for the time being, that's the main stuff you need to know about. So I can go ahead, I can send this request over to, intruder. Or not intruder, automate, my mistake. I'm used to using burp. Kaido is something that I'm kind of getting used to. But with automate, what it lets me do is I can go in here and I can select different things, and I can have it actually run it automatically for me, which is amazing. So I can put in the lists and I can have it work through them. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and select testing for the username right here, and I'll do plus. And I'll select testing for the password right here, and I'll do another plus. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to change the type of request on here to over to matrix. That way that each of our, what's the word I'm looking for? Each of our things here are going to be submitted differently. So let's go ahead, let's do a simple list, and we'll load it from a file. We will once again go over here to root, and then we'll do user, share, word lists, and we just need to find a couple of usernames. So it's once again going to be under the sec lists here. Let's try that. Usernames, and let's do top username short list. There's only like 17 of them, so it's not that bad. We'll pop on over here to the password field. Notice payload number 2. We'll choose once again a simple list, and then we have to go and find our password file. Okay, so now that we have our shortened list, let's go ahead and run it. Run. Same kind of idea. It's going to try out, looks like the username, and then it's going to try out the passwords, and it will go from there. So you can see it's changing that username area. And if we go ahead and we take a look at the length, you'll see that one right here stands out. The length itself versus all the 4702s that are still popping up, there's this one right here, which is 4740. So we have one that's different. Let's go ahead and pause this and see what happens. We have this right here. We can see the request was made with admin and password. Let's put those in. Let's stop queuing. Admin, and then we had password. And if you do that, we're in. Welcome to the password protected area, admin. Good job. Now, I've also mentioned that sometimes there's a couple of different security aspects that a web developer can put in to help, I guess, prevent or deter some brute forcing methods. So let's see what DVWA gives us. Let's pop here into the security, put it onto medium, and submit, and we'll come back and we'll try it again. We're going to use the exact same set of payloads because we know that they work. So we'll go ahead, we'll go back here to intercept. We'll queue up another request, and we'll try to log in. We get the request right here. Once again, send it on over to automate, go back to automate, and I know that I modified the password request, or not the password request, but the password list. So I'm probably going to do that again. But same idea. We'll go ahead, add, simple list, and we said it was top username short list, select, and then we had this one, add. We want to change this over to a matrix, and this one right here, number 2 will be simple list again, load from file. We had 10K most common. We just want the first 100, and because you get the concept, I'm not going to do that much. We're just going to copy and paste. Okay, we got that. Let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. So you can kind of see here that the requests are going through significantly slower. And this is, like I said, when it comes to different security aspects that web developers can do, this is definitely an option that they can do. They're able to significantly slow down the requests, make it so that the hacker just doesn't want to deal with it anymore, especially if they're doing any kind of brute forcing. This can take a very long time to get through. And I'm not sure exactly how long this is. Probably, what, 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to skip forward to when it finds it, and we'll pick up from there. All right, there it is, folks. We just got it, password. And once again, we can see that the length is different than all of the others. Stop. The length is different than all of the others, right? And once again, we see that it's admin and password. Let's stop queuing and try it again. And voila, we're in. Problem solved. All right, folks. I actually got a little sidetracked in case you haven't noticed the time in the top right-hand corner. I was going through and exploring this website. This goes actually quite deep, so I'm happy that I'm going to be able to use this for a lot of our demonstration purposes moving forward. For instance, obviously, at some point in time, I'll talk you through how to take a look at page sources to see if there's anything in here that's useful, different things like that. And then as I was exploring, I expected this view source button to actually give me that HTML source like what we were just on, but it actually gives us the PHP source for the functions that are being run on the page. And so you're able to go through here and you can see what's actually happening when you hit on that login button, which is pretty awesome. So I was kind of exploring a couple of things, playing around and seeing what was on there. Like I said, I got a little bit sidetracked, but later on down the road, we're going to get into more details about how to bypass a lot of this stuff. For the time being, I'll just covering the basics of brute forcing, how it works, and what it is. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. As always, you guys like the video if you liked it. Leave a comment if you have any questions or if you have ideas for future videos. And obviously share it with people who you think might benefit from this information. But besides that, you guys, I'm going to head on out. Have yourselves a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next one.